Wow, what a week. So, I'm not here to talk about the theater between those two, and it doesn't really matter what side you're on, if you defend Trump or if you're on team Elon. Maybe at that time they're together again. So, who knows, right? So, it's completely unpredictable. But I'm here to talk about the impact into monetary mechanics, how money is distributed around the world, and how that also affects liquidity and, of course, Bitcoin as well. All right, let's dive right into it. One of the things that really caught my attention here is this post where Trump literally says that for the very first time he agrees with Elizabeth Warren on something. So the debt limit should be entirely scraped to prevent an economic catastrophe. And of course, this is one of the many things that triggered Elon, right? That he just that post that just went viral and created the whole story that you might have heard by now. But this is interesting. So not only to negotiate the debt ceiling, but completely eliminate it, right? So why not? And here is the current situation. So if you see how the debt has risen, and maybe when you understand monetary mechanics, you see that we have currently a global economy basically that is running more and more onto this kind of liquidity, just deficit spending. And that spending has driven a lot of GDP of the United States, but also many other countries around the world. But of course, the United States being the biggest country and also the central part of the whole dollar system and the euro dollar system, especially the dollars outside the United States that are influenced by this mechanic. You see here that and of course I think it's been over 20 times that the debt ceiling has been negotiated, and you see here on those so lately you see the debt ceiling suspension that has already happened. So this drags more and more, requiring more frequent negotiations. And of course, based on a credit based system, you need to renegotiate those debt ceilings, because if you have more money that is owed than circulates, that's where you need it is a system that needs to expand. Otherwise, it just breaks down in a deflationary spiral. So if you think in a way, so to speak, like MMT, modern monetary theory, it would explain a lot of what happens. It would make a lot of sense, right? Why, if you are the issuer of your own currency, why have a debt ceiling in the first place? And also, from a credit perspective, you can conclude the same thing. And of course, that's one of the big flaws of what happens based on how the money is actually spent, which creates the whole mechanics of liquidity being transferred to the world through this relationship between the dollar and US bonds, right? So US bonds, as you may have seen that in my last few videos, is collateral for the whole system for credit creation. So the yin and the yang, one is like the other, two different kinds of money, one that just circulates and provides no kind of interest rates for you, and another one that has some risks because it fluctuates, but on a price, not on a credit, right? But also it provides some interest as well. So you need those flowing to make sure the liquidity is going on. And having this kind of rhetoric, this is very inflammatory for liquidity. So this just creates, of course, we were already on a huge trajectory, but that creates a lot of momentum, and of course that's great for Bitcoin and other assets as well, like gold and stocks and so on. However, there are some short term obstacles for liquidity that we might see, right? And we talk a lot about those in our latest report. And to be, of course, we don't have any time to explain everything on a simple video. That's why we dive deep into the details of the monetary mechanics. And I invite you to just have a look at our latest report that we just released. And you can, if you want to have access to it, you just can click the links below in the description. Just make sure to use the promo code as well, so you can have 5% off as well. All right. So here, one of the biggest challenges that we have in the United States right now is how liquidity is being drained from the TGA. We call it the Treasury General Account. So basically, the Treasury's checking account is what is sustaining liquidity as of today, because the United States, based on the debt ceiling situation, is only able to roll over current debt, but it's not able to provide more and more bonds to get the liquidity going. So I talk a lot about that into our Bitcoin intelligence report as well. So if you see here, this is basically the dynamics that could provide a little bit of a hiccup in the next few months. So you see here the TGA is currently going down. So it was a little above $600 billion, and now we're just below 400 billion. So I think it's 380 something billion, and of course draining as we speak. That's the clock that is actually running towards a negotiation of the debt ceiling, so the United States is able to go back to the game and issue more bonds. So if you want to think about it, it's like the whole economy is showing that liquidity is there. So it's optimistic. You see the markets like S&P 500 coming back to the game, right? So you see here almost 6,000 points as we speak. And you also see Bitcoin, of course, near all-time highs, so 104, and all looks great. But this is a lot of that mechanic is based on that kind of drain. So this is why once the TGA refill, as we call it, is going to happen once the ceiling is negotiated, that has the tendency to suck a lot of that liquidity back into that TGA, which was not going to risk on assets, right? So that's the dynamic that should be some correction for risk on assets. So we're going to be tracking that closely. But you see, it's a matter of not being caught up too much into narratives, because the market has gone down. For example, yesterday when there was the whole situation between Elon and Trump, and then depending on what happens afterwards, the market comes back. So there was this very short term headline kind of narratives, which is very detrimental for people who just want to keep their sanity and into so many smoke screens that we see all over the place. This is why it's very important to just stick to the fundamentals. So I'm going to keep an eye on the TGA, keep an eye on the actual negotiations, but of course, midterm, longer term, this here is something that could be absolutely huge, because as Lynn Allen would say, right, and it just became a famous meme on the internet, nothing stops this train. And this would just be another that would be nothing stop this train that accelerates this train even more. So that would be on steroids, so to speak. So a lot of interesting stuff going on. So we're going to check on what happens this week, but for sure, we don't see any kind of liquidity setbacks for mid and longer term. But again, we're going to dive very deep into details about other things that are happening right now to liquidity that you can certainly have a look, and it's going to be a pleasure to see you there. So see you in the next video. And for sure, 2025, it's a completely different paradigm than we see for 2024. It's like we have different decades that are happening in a single year. So let's see about the next steps. And yeah, thank you so much, and see you in the next video.